Hey guys, what's up? It's me, Thomas. Today we're back here with the Green Scorpion, and today, well, we'll be ready to rock out because we got the top 7 Hi-Fi Rush boss battles. So, I actually had this on, well, I was planning to do this when it came out, but I figured, well, might as well do the game first. And, well, as of yesterday, I actually did, so I don't have to worry about it. So, as for my favorites, well, Kale was fun to, whack, I guess you could say. Other than that, I don't know. Well, might as well just hop in, enjoy the show, and, well, see where everything leads us to. So, let me know your favorites. Let's go. Ready to engage. Here we go.
Hello everyone, the Green Scorpion here, and what a wonderful era we live in for smaller game studios. The passion you get from a scrappy team of auteurs is hard to match in AAA titles, whether they're making unofficial sequels to games nearly forgotten, or charting new territory and combining genres. One of my favorite trends to come out of this is the rhythm action game. Games like Devil May Cry and Bayonetta have always had a sort of flow to their combos. Now just put a beat to it and suddenly you got yourself a kick-ass soundtrack that you can literally kick ass with. I once thought I'd found my favorite of these with No Straight Roads. We even made a countdown about its boss fights. However, a new contender has since come for the throne. Tango Gameworks Hi-Fi Rush. Rendered in eye-popping cel-shaded color, Hi-Fi Rush tells the story of wannabe guitarist Chai as he joins a ragtag rebellion against an all-encompassing faceless corporation.
Peppermint.
I say faceless, but actually the mugs behind the scenes are pretty memorable. And today, I'm going to give them the NSR treatment and rank them worst to best.
No.
Hello.
Stop right there.
What?
Mech? What are you doing here?
Give it a second.
Oh.
So we're finally doing this, huh?
You know it.
Awesome. Introduce yourself.
Go
Hello,
ahead.
audience. I'm MechaSoulMan. If you're a fan of Oscar's channel, you've seen some of my work editing the highlights.
Yep.
I'm a little new to the Countdown game, but on my channel I do
fair enough.
long-form retrospectives on, well, anything I like, really. Shin Megami Tensei, Dead or Alive, and I was planning on doing a deep dive on Hi-Fi Rush when I messaged Oscar in hopes of doing this collab. I'm not really one to shamelessly plug my content.
Fine, I'll do it then. If you guys like this video, then head over to Mech's channel afterwards and check him out. Highly recommend his Tales of Xillia 1 and 2 videos.
Thanks.
Dude, you nervous?
Well, I mean, this is probably going to be the only chance I'll get to collaborate with you on anything, so I'm both excited and nervous at the same time.
Take a breath,
Makes
my
sense.
guy. It's all good.
Makes sense.
How about you explain them how we're going to rank these bosses?
See your puppy back
Throughout
there.
Hi-Fi Rush, we butt heads with Vandalay Technologies and its 6 larger-than-life executive leaders. None of Hi-Fi Rush's bosses are bad, let that be clear. It's not a matter of trimming out the fat, just elevating the great moments from the good.
Makes
To rank
sense.
higher on this list, we want satisfying boss battles that keep the flow of the game going, requiring
you
quick
gotta follow the
reflexes
rhythm,
from the
so
player without feeling
break the rhythm.
unfair.
Well,
Hard
down
is
you
better
go.
than easy in this case, but the most important thing is maintaining the player's immersion so they can jam to these battles the same way they would jam to a song. That's not just attack patterns and frame data, it's a big part of this game and its story and its spectacle.
The best boss fights in this game are interlaced with moments of shock, humor, and even character development at times. We don't want cutscenes taking us out of the experience for too long. But
Fair
if
enough.
the game can incorporate the personality of its bosses with the gameplay, that's a huge plus right there.
If you haven't played Hi-Fi Rush, obviously we're about to spoil the entire thing.
I already
So
covered
bookmark
it.
this
I'm
video
good.
and watch it later if you want to still play it fresh. Still, even if you know all the bosses on the set list, this game has a lot to offer, and hopefully hearing about it will convince a few of you to give it a try.
So plug in your headphones and start bumping that MP3 player. It's time for the top 7 Hi-Fi Rush boss battles.
Here we go.
7? But there are only 6.
Let's give it a go, go, go!
Okay, Sanzo, thank you.
But enough talk. How about you?
As we dismantle the corporate
first
structure
up.
of the evil cybernetics company, we're pitted against the various leaders on Vanderlei's board of directors. This includes Sanzo, head of research
Yep.
and development.
who isn't a boss in this game.
Dude, I just said he's the boss of research and development.
Yeah,
But
but
we
he's
don't
not
really
a boss
fight him,
battle.
so,
You
yeah,
don't
bye-bye.
actually fight him.
Okay, yeah, you're right, but one, I wanted to make this video a little longer, and two, I thought this would be a good chance to highlight some of the great
Oops.
things that Hi-Fi Rush does with its
There you go.
antagonists. As a story, Hi-Fi Rush is very anti-corporation in a way that's very topical. I mean, the main villain is an
True.
egotistical tech mogul branching out into political domination and mind control. I'd normally say
Yep.
it was clear who they were referencing, but we
Trump.
actually have multiple candidates nowadays.
Never mind the fact that this is published by Bethesda, who just got bought by Microsoft. Not exactly a small mom and pop shop either.
Nope.
Each member of the board of directors is colorful, memorable, and such a joy to take down a peg. Helping this are the levels leading up to each boss fight where we hear the corresponding director over the intercom scheming and bantering while we fight through their defenses.
For Zanzo, we learn that he's an absolute maniac. He thinks himself as a brilliant artist, but comes off more as
And
a
JoJo
scientist.
fanboy with all his
And as
poses.
a manager, he's a nightmare, changing his ideas on a whim and forcing his workers to follow his erratic demands. I feel like the writers were drawing on experience in the gaming industry here.
And this is what I was talking about
Makes
earlier.
sense.
I don't think we'd be fully appreciating the game if we don't acknowledge the themes
Wow,
written into the
Rockford
villains
High.
here. At one point, we hear a conversation where Roquefort, the head of finances, cuts off Zanzo's budget with Zanzo calling him an ingrate for letting the money limit his artistic vision. And I think that's a
Yeah,
corporate
you can see
phenomenon
what's going on
worth
here, right?
examining. We all want to say that
game
the
calls
bottom
it
line doesn't
Project
matter
Music
when it comes to
Guy.
impactful art.
Okay,
But
that's what I'm
Zanzo
curious
has
about what you got
no
there.
idea what he's actually making. He's just hiding behind a facade of vision and passion to justify his projects, which are all quantity and no quality. The
Pretty
Zanzo
much.
arc sees Chai and the gang exploiting this by goading Zanzo to use up all of his budget trying to stop them. More big machines and flashy shields until you get to the final showdown and his money has completely run out. No
Dead.
money, no power. It's one of the funnier examples of a
Defunded.
fake-out boss fight that I can recall,
Oh.
and it's a complete and utter JoJo reference.
See?
Well, to be fair,
you can see
Zanzo's
it.
whole character is a JoJo reference, and it is pretty funny. It's still kind of a letdown to me though, because I would have actually liked to fight him. I don't really care for jokes like this as an
think it's
excuse
more
to
like
not
just
have
taking
more
his ego
worthwhile
down a
content
bunch.
in the game. But unlike, say, No More Heroes, Hi-Fi Rush only does this once, so I'm willing to give it a pass. Besides, if the developers ran low on resources and had to cut one or multiple boss fights,
Oh, 3-cut
it's
bosses,
pretty funny to
including
pick the
Zanzo.
guy that's
Oh,
most like a
cool.
crazy game dev.
I suppose you could argue that the entirety of Zanzo's level is the boss fight, and the budget bar technically counts as a health bar, but regardless, this is the reason why we can't rank him over any of the actual boss fights.
Yeah.
But he at least deserves a mention. Zanzo's a cautionary tale for anyone running a project. Work within your deadlines, be nice to your teammates, and just because you're a big nerd, it doesn't mean you're one of us.
Yeah, fair. Also, makes sense. I mean, other than Sanzo, who do you think they else are also cut? Well, would be fun to actually beat him up to sight the head, but what are you gonna do? Guess they couldn't include everything. Anyway, moving along. Ah! Oof. Ow. No. Sorry, Cinnamon.
For the first actual
Oh, hi, Rekka.
boss on the list, we have the head of production, Rekka,
The
a
rest-
wrestling-themed Amazon who would like nothing more than to crush Chai into a little cube. And maybe it's fitting that we list her first, as she's the first member of the big six we have to take down in-game. Not the first boss overall, but
True.
we'll get to that.
As such, Rekka sets the
It's
bar
next.
for what we should expect from future boss fights. She doesn't set the bar particularly high, but she is a good checkpoint to prove your skills with all the mechanics you've learned up to this point, while not feeling like a straight-up tutorial either.
I almost wish she was a tutorial.
Really?
Then we might be allowed to skip her.
Wow.
Ooh, that bad, huh?
No, not exactly. She's actually pretty good, especially for the first run of the game. She makes a great first impression for how these boss fights are going to go down. It's actually on repeat playthroughs.
Yeah, I
that
think
have
it's
a
when you get the
problem.
parry
We should
move,
probably
then,
start
well,
with that first
good luck.
impression.
As a character, Rekka is a good enough villain to hang alongside the others, but she's also the biggest jobber, if you know what I mean. You get an especially long time with her compared to the others, or rather, you get more levels with her on the intercom. Making her angry is a lot of fun because she's overconfident and vindictive, just like a fun villain should be. But considering that this is the baseline for all villains moving forward, everyone gets to compare
one of our
and
first
contrast to what
exposures
Rekka does,
outside
which leaves
Mimosa.
Rekka feeling a little vanilla. Also, she kind of reminded me of Misuzu, the first boss from River City Girls, and it made me wonder if assigning the Swole Lady as the first boss was becoming a thing. I do like
Yeah,
the
to each
wrestling
their own.
motif though, and how her boss fight uses the environment.
Rekka's fight tests the skills you've only been using on mooks up until this point. You'll need to use the assist mechanic, as only Peppermint can pop her shields in the second and third phase. She also has some wide hitboxes,
didn't know you
so
could
you'll
do
need
that.
to be good on your dodges to hop out of range, as well as the magnet grab to get back in there and finally deal some damage to Macho Woman Rekka Savage.
And she only gets
Fits.
more savage as the fight progresses into phases 2 and 3, ripping up the floor to reveal a deadly moat of electrical wires and pulling out the pipes with her sick pythons. It's a good escalation as you'll need to be more aware of your surroundings as the fight progresses.
It's a great progression, certainly, for that first showdown. But once you
Okay.
get to know the game better, you start to see the flaws
And
in
more
this
moves,
fight.
as you
For example,
guess.
when you challenge her in New Game Plus with assists you didn't have the first time, you'll find that with the right timing, you can alternate between Peppermint's
Yeah.
air jam combo and Corsica's high alert counter to pretty much stun lock her, trivializing the fight in all three phases. This is on
Makes
Rhythm Master
sense.
difficulty, by the way.
Makes
Not that I'm against fights that you can trivialize by getting good. That's part of the joy of character action games. The problem is, even if you're not taking damage, this fight can still take a long time for something completely unthreatening to you.
Yeah, I can agree to that. The first time through, you might appreciate those slow wind-up attacks for teaching you how to dodge, but on your 5th playthrough, it means waiting that much longer before you can actually just start parrying everything.
That's not even the half of it. Her juiced up mode has way too much downtime where you basically need to wait for Dwayne the Rekka Johnson to be vulnerable again. I personally hate uninteractive gameplay in video games, and Rekka is the first example in this game to show that to me. Plus, if you damage her too quickly in Phase 1, she seems to gain hyper armor and refuse to move into Phase 2 for a really long time. Not sure if that's a bug or a feature, but
be.
I'd like it to be fixed, please, Tango.
And finally, the music in Rekka's fight isn't particularly memorable. Like, it's good, Free Radicals is super solid like her rock hard abs, but Rekka's warm-up act can't stand up to the other headliners on this list.
She's the
Leaving
first. What do you
Rekka Van
expect?
Dam at number 6.
Okay, I'm not one for puns, but dude, kudos on the wrestling references.
No problem.
you.
And again, first boss, so we'll see how easy it is. Especially when they get the timing down.
So we mentioned that there's a boss fight that comes before Rekka. As a matter of fact, it's the only one that isn't available.
Here it is,
directly,
QA.
which makes up for Zanzo, I suppose, but anyway. Here we have QA-1 Mill, a giant robot employed by Rekka for quality assurance. Unfortunately, QA has never really inspected anything that he didn't immediately want to disassemble.
This, even
Again,
more so
they
than
hate
Rekka,
defects, so-
is a tutorial boss.
Can't spy 'em.
Or you can look at it as an early spectacle
Come
that
on.
hooks the player. Honestly, it's really good at being both. Like Metal Gear Rising, having a massive scale boss fight early on to hook
With
the
the Ray.
player is a win in my book. He's not a particularly fast robot, but it's just fast enough that I can at least pretend to be in awe here.
The music definitely helps. I'm
Let's
never going
look
to say
at it,
no
I
to a
guess.
Nine Inch Nails song, and its placement here is well executed.
Oh.
Everything about this first battle plays to the strengths of Hi-Fi Rush's style. Hell, before the battle even begins, you can feel the intensity.
Ooh.
Silence, and then the platform starts moving. The music kicks in,
With Nine
and
Inch Nails
Chai's
here, the
heartbeat
slip.
begins to pound as the platform continues to rise, as if the vibe of the game is mirroring the player's excitement with Chai's heartbeat. I'm just saying, this intro sequence is immaculately directed.
Then we get to the battle proper. Like Rekka, it doesn't take many playthroughs to easily no damage run this guy, but it also doesn't fall into the same snooze fest as Rekka when it gets easier. Sure, you can bring in assist moves from later in the game on repeat playthroughs, but interestingly enough, they don't really flow with this fight. I found that calling Peppermint, Macaron, and Corsica actually slowed me down and wasn't as efficient. This boss is best fought mano a mano, and I kind of like that.
It's
I
also
mean,
got
just
those
like the
quick
game
time event
intended,
moments that
right?
let you blast apart different sections
about
of its face, an element you'll want to get used to for the rest of the game. But the way he breaks apart gives you multiple spots to damage him from. And being the biggest boss in the game, QA1 Mill has his own unique identity among the rest of the boss roster.
But at the end of the day, he is the training wheels boss. His lack of any real flaws is enough to rank him above Rekka's slightly annoying match, but there's also not enough of a personality to build on, and despite the awesome lead up to his fight, he's
Kinda
gone
interesting, the
without
first
any
three are
real
kinda
fanfare,
lowest.
Not even a rules of nature.
Hang on, I got you covered.
There you go. Sorry, okay, had to be done.
So, yeah, I'd say number 5 is good enough for 1 Mill. So aside from Zanzo,
Who you just added to pad the video.
That you
I
did.
just added to pad out the video.
The first two bosses of the game are also the worst two bosses. And they're both still pretty darn good.
Fair. I think this is quality of Hi-Fi Rush. And number 4? Let's see which one.
Coming in at number 4, we
Oh,
have Vandelay's
Rockford.
Director of Finance, Roquefort. Fortunately for us, he's an old man with a small stature who could impossibly...
Give it a minute.
Yeah, nice try, but I played enough games to know that you never underestimate the old guy. He's gonna roll back his shoulders, tear off his shirt, and be totally ripped, or he's gonna bust out some crazy martial arts or mystical combat style that only a lifetime of dedication could have...
Is it? Ugh. Or as I think I called it in the stream, RoboFury! Hey, I had to say it. Look at that.
Oh
RoboFury.
my god, I knew this would be awesome,
Yep.
but I wasn't expecting
Stop
Wolfmech
expression.
awesome.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure DeviantArt went crazy with this guy.
And you would know that because...
I'm on DeviantArt, dude. I'm a degenerate. Everyone
Aren't we all?
on DeviantArt is a degenerate. Besides, it's not like you're innocent. I've seen your tweet.
Anyway...
Fair
When they
enough.
said Roquefort was a wolf in sheep's clothing, they meant it literally.
Yep.
It's made even better when you notice he's still wearing his work attire.
My favorite part is the tie.
Mine's the little monocle. All the
Yeah,
better to see
it's
you
kind of
with.
cool.
And the boss
Looking back
theme
at it,
is
you know?
classical music.
I had a feeling you'd say that. Wasn't Yinu your favorite boss in No Straight Roads? Most of the game's soundtrack is
Okay.
rooted in some sort of rock. Roquefort gives us this trap mix of that one song you've heard a million times. What is it called?
Beethoven's Fifth.
There you go.
Thank you.
But anyway, yeah, this fight is amazing.
It is, but I still have some reservations about it. On concept alone, it's one of the best, and certainly has higher highs than 1 Mil or Rekka, but
True.
also some lows that I can't really overlook.
Well, let's start with the good. Roquefort's another 3-phase boss fight, and in each phase, you need to contend with this giant lupine Decepticon first, weaving between his swipes until you've done enough damage to knock him out of his armor. Then he'll transform to his human form and roll out, forcing you to chase him down. Hit his wrinkled ass enough times, and he'll move on to the next phase.
Each phase is punctuated with a change in scenery. Phase 1 takes place in his office, Phase 2 blasts you into the wall of the vault, and Phase 3 drops down into his Scrooge McDuck money pit. He even swims in the gold DuckTales style.
Let's take this someplace a bit more secure, so we don't disturb the neighbors.
Is the safe really that secure if you can knock the door off its hinges that easily?
Or just
Well,
bust
I mean,
through.
have you seen how strong this wolf is? His moves are pretty well telegraphed once you know what to look out for, but his dash attacks have surprising range, and his claws are some of the most damaging attacks in the game, so there's not a lot of margin for error.
He is pretty
Yeah,
easy to parry
just-
once you understand his pattern, but knowing the price of failure definitely adds some tension. The
Yep.
problem is whenever he's running from you. This little coward won't stay still. He keeps putting up shields that you need to either pop with peppermint or macaron. And that's always kind of been an issue I've had with the game, because you need a certain assist and it's on cooldown, and you're pretty much stuck. until
Unless
it's
you got
back
the
up
chips
again.
for it.
Teaches you not to mash your assists, though.
Kinda. But then in Phase 2, he's got the laser grids that
what
grind the
the-
fight to a halt while you wait for an opening. I'm fine with there just being quiet time in games that slow down the pacing, but this is just torture.
Yeah, I can understand the
Yeah,
frustration.
it took me a while to
but
get that
personally, I
down,
don't
because
mind
I didn't
it.
realize
You're
it just
switching
needed to
roles between
slip in
Predator
there
and prey
but
constantly
being down.
throughout the fight, and it forces you to master your combo string so you can get in as much damage as possible before he weasels away again. You also have the magnet grab to keep up
Yeah.
with him, and your allies to keep the herd on consistently. Anything you can do to punish him without being too greedy yourself. It's a test of patience.
Not to
but
mention
also
the S rank
opportunity.
you gotta
I'm
keep
not
up
calling
with,
it that
you
at
know?
all. It just feels a little less natural than the next 3 bosses on the list. And
Fair.
just so I'm covering all my bases, I don't really like these counter segments with Corsica that they start throwing in the second phase. The mechanic itself is fine, I like it when it happens in other fights, but you'll probably need to do this around like 3 times throughout the boss fight, and it starts to feel like it's just interrupting you from attacking normally. I wish it only happened during the 3rd phase, right at the end, and it does make for an awesome finishing blow, just not when I've done it twice already.
As for me, my issue comes from what happens when you figure out how to actually cheese the fight.
Oh?
Like we said earlier, Roquefort does a lot of damage, but once you realize that most of his attacks are grounded, you can abuse Chai's magnet grab and aerial attacks to safely whittle down Roquefort's health by simply whacking him in the face. It's not
Basically,
100%
stand in the air,
safe,
you'll
but
be
it
fine.
does turn
Though,
this boss from one of
good
the
luck
harder
with
fights in the
parries.
game to one of the easiest.
Still one hell of a spectacle, though.
Can't argue with that.
True, and being killed by prophets. Nice. And actually, I always wondered, like, the hell did robots able to do that? Like, seriously. Went from, like, to, well, giant-sized. Like, seriously, what kind of procedure was that? It was pretty much a transformer. Whoosh. It's pretty nuts when you think of it like that, you know? What do you guys think? Honestly, I did like it. And it was actually one of the bosses that I actually had to do a second attempt on, because, well, she's those hit hard. Plus, I was kind of running low on funds since I didn't know how to grind out the gears, I guess. Anyway, Battle 3. Let's see, we still have Corsica, Mimosa, and Kale left, so let's see where they're rank.
So, have you ever played Resident Evil 4?
Not yet, no.
No.
I haven't,
Rhetorical
just
question,
haven't
Matt.
gotten
That
to
was
it.
for the audience.
Oh, sorry.
But
Have you?
actually, though,
Horror was never really my thing.
well,
Fair.
it's not really a horror.
I thank you for your gift.
You were saying there, bud?
You know what? Fair enough.
See?
More to the point, you know how in the original Resident Evil 4 there was that cutscene when Krauser first shows up and you get into a knife fight? The whole thing is dialogue about Leon and Krauser having a past, and then
Oh, God!
boom, quick time event, instant
Son of
death.
a bitch.
This is a commonly despised segment in Resi 4, to the point where the remake just made it a bona fide real-time boss fight. Expositions
fair
and
enough,
quick time events
'cause,
don't
dude,
often
not
mix,
even a
because
telegraph.
How is a player supposed to
Sheesh.
process the dialogue when they're paranoid the next button prompt can appear at any moment?
Or it gets killed.
quickly to not die as fast.
Well, Hi-Fi Rush pretty much does that,
Better?
but it's actually done
Oh,
well
hey,
here.
Corsica.
After all that talk about the no-holds-barred slugfest with Roquefort that spans multiple set pieces and uses every mechanic in the game,
True.
Corsica might seem like a step back. It's essentially just Simon Says, a series of call and response bits interspersed with dialogue. You might even call it a
True.
cop-out, a mini-game in place of a boss fight, not much better than Zanzo's anticlimactic demise. But for what it is,
I mean, at least here you're doing
Corsica's tightly
something, so
choreographed
it could be
showdown
worse.
stands as a highlight of the adventure, largely for how well it integrates with the story. At this point in their mission, Peppermint's team of rebels notice that while most of the Big Six are reprehensible lunatics, Corsica, the head of security, seems much more reasonable, surmising that she might just be unaware of the darker dealings of Vanderlei Technologies. So,
I actually played the game, and I do know that Corsica was only there for 6 months, so she's basically the rookie among the 6 bosses. Who she actually joined because her town was actually saved by Vanderlei after an ecological disaster. So, to pay back, she joined up. And little heads up, Kale never told her everything about Spectra. And when, Chai told her about, hey, that Spectra thing? Yeah, evil AI. She doesn't immediately dismiss it. She's like, I better double check this. So yeah, she does her due diligence, so gotta give her props for that. Anyway,
if they could just talk to Corsica, maybe
Yep.
she could defect and
Friendly
become
one.
a powerful ally. The problem is, getting to the head of security isn't going to be easy because, well, she's the head of security.
pretty much. Pun?
Okay, seriously, why isn't Mech saying anything?
Oh,
Oh, right. Corsica's your favorite.
There you go.
Mhm.
You want to take it from here, then?
go ahead.
Absolutely. While most bosses have around 2 levels of intercom chatter to characterize them, there's a whopping 5 leading up to Corsica's battle, giving us
Dang.
plenty of time to gauge her personality. She's hot-headed, she's an overachiever, she likes to do things her way, but she's also got a clear moral code. And while she's not ready to jump ship just yet, she's obviously suspicious of her employer.
See?
At the same time, this gives a lot of time to develop Chai. Sure, he's a nice guy who's naturally against evil corporate dictatorship, but trying to
took
reason
him a
with
minute.
Corsica gives him a chance to consider how devoted he really is to this cause, whether he wants to give his life for it or if he's just here to get that MP3 player out of his chest. The prior levels built Corsica
Actually,
and Chai up as foils,
Not his
one
fault.
honorable but misguided. The other, a soldier of good by mere happenstance.
See?
If you've been playing the game up until this point and you know anything about visual storytelling, then you'll probably know what's going to happen prior to Mission 7. What
Yep.
takes place is a completely predictable sequence that everyone and their mother saw coming. We want to take her in willingly, talk her down.
So
while avoiding
basically,
her attacks.
chainy tactics.
Hi-Fi doesn't pull this trick twice. You face Corsica with nothing but your simple parry, utilizing unique sequences you've already practiced on other enemies prior. And with the third phase in sight, we get some of the best dialogue in the game.
I know you're not like the others, Corsica. You can feel something's wrong.
Chai, you are
3, 2,
surprisingly
1.
convincing.
Then Chai screws it up,
Or are you just too oblivious to figure that out?
Chai!
On! That's
Idiot!
it. Now I'm mad.
And then the music kicks in. The cinematic and gameplay direction of this fight is immaculate. While Chai is great at dodging and parrying, he's no one's first choice for diplomacy. Some of
He's
Hi-Fi
got a
Rush's
big mouth. What
best
do you expect?
writing takes place during this boss fight. Chai's being cocky, Korsica's being salty, and everyone else at HQ are losing their minds over how much Chai is
Mostly
screwing this up.
peppermint and
Halfway
cinnamon.
Through, though, Chai decides he's just
Macaron
no
sees what
good
he's
at debate
doing,
club
so-
and decides to try and antagonize her, drawing out her attacks until she's too tired to fight anymore. It shows a lot of character growth in Chai, showing that he's committed to the cause and willing to acknowledge his own strengths and weaknesses. Plus, he's patient and knows not to hurt Korsica intentionally.
Yeah, skipping ahead, watching Chai try to carry Korsica's unconscious body out of the facility had me
Ow.
cackling.
And
Yeah,
yeah, the
true,
fight
just,
really is a simple case of bop it. Buttons
bonk,
show up, you hit
bonk,
them, but there are
whack.
many factors that make this
gotta
work
love it.
better than it would in most other action games.
First of all, this is a rhythm game. Timed inputs are kind of expected.
Second of all, while there's a lot going on in the conversation, there's a clear delineation between cutscene and gameplay. You know when you can just take in the story and when you have to start pushing buttons.
And third is the way these specific QuickTime events work in this game. It's a mechanic you learn way back in Zonzo's level in which they're played to you first in a sequence of beats. As a result, you have a crucial moment to understand the rhythm of what you're doing so you can respond accordingly. And even if you fail, your punishment is a simple damage drop as opposed to instant death, and you're thrown right back in to try again. This whole fight feels more like
True.
a duel.
It's not
Her
immediate death
attacking and
like
you
Resident Evil.
responding.
You
And,
get a chance
praise
here.
once again, the layered music and unique lighting to this scene are just
See?
chef's kiss. Seriously,
I mean, the beat, you
Negotiation
gotta love
might be
it.
the game's best track, at least to me. Does that about cover it?
I'd say so, yes.
Good job.
Korsica's fight is a small package, but I adore what we got.
I'd personally say it's perfect. But of course,
I mean,
it's
she's
still
your wife,
essentially a
do you expect
minigame
anything
fight.
less from him?
Plus, Korsica's attack strings are always the same, even on higher difficulties, making this one of the easier bosses to get a perfect rating on. But what you see is what you get. Its only real flaw is that it can't compare
Yeah.
to the next two bosses, who match Roquefort in complexity and improve in quality.
For what it's worth, though, Korsica's got that same quality.
Whew. And sleep.
Musical powers.
I mean, if you get it right, you could get an S rank pretty easily. But there is.
Well, that's
You okay?
What's with you?
I hate you.
What?
What did I do?
Not you. Her.
Now hit it!
Mimosa. Oh, her.
Oh boy, here we go. So,
Yep.
yeah, Mimosa is a total narcissist. I always hate those kinds
I mean,
of characters too, which is
H-
why I
or
find it
marketing
strange
here.
that I love
Oof.
this fight so much. Maybe it's because I get to whack her in that stupid placid face.
Why not?
This is where Oscar and I had the most disagreement. Mimosa, the head of marketing for Vandalay and an influential pop star, is the fourth boss you find
Or
in
as
the
I
game.
called
She's
her,
also considered the
show-
hardest boss in the
showgirl.
game by many fans, and I personally think she's hard for all the wrong reasons.
As for me, I think this fight is amazing. Fittingly for a famous performer, this boss fight is a stage show with a roaring crowd, discotheque lighting, and best of all, an electronic jazz orchestra cheering you on. Mimosa's boss theme, which is a cover of Fiona Apple's Fast As You Can, by the way, is the only boss theme to incorporate triplets. And considering you're likely used to the 4/4 time signature used throughout the entire game, this shift in syncopation and attack patterns that are artfully off the beat keeps you on your toes.
I mean, yeah, that's the cool part, but it's not her attacks that bother me. If anything, she doesn't have enough of them. The real problem is her defense. Mimosa sports this transforming dress that serves as a pair of wings and an impenetrable shield. It's a great visual flourish, but in battle, you have to keep stunning her with assists just to put the shield down, and she restores it only a few seconds later. If you're not right on top of her, you might miss the
Yeah.
attack window entirely.
Well, of course she's not going to stay down for long. You gotta use the magnet grab.
Well, look, I don't need her to stay stunned. I'd be fine if she recovered quickly and started moving normally again, so long as the shield stayed down just a little bit longer. Essentially, she has two modes, invincible and vegetable. I just want to fight her like a normal boss. Like, I know that I complain about Roquefort, but at least you were actually trading blows in that fight. In this fight, I just feel like I'm spamming assist moves, and that just doesn't feel right to me in a character action game. I even found
Yeah.
an exploit where you can destroy most of her shield while she's getting up if you just summon all your friends at once. It's
Oh.
cheap, and I admittedly kind of
Asset
feel
spin.
bad for doing it, but the shield is so annoying that I'm always tempted to do so anyway. It almost feels like it was designed for
Before
this
you ask, no, I didn't do it
Okay,
when
yeah,
I was
I'm not
playing
gonna
her,
act like
so...
that's not annoying at all, but I suppose I was never bothered by the downtime in these fights. It feels more like a dance to me. They get a verse when they're on the attack, and then it's my turn to cave their skull in during the chorus. And as for the attacks themselves, well, you can't say that there isn't variety.
Yeah, the attacks she adds in phases 2 and 3 don't really add much to me, besides just creating more area control that slows things down. I mean, this one literally traps you in a box. I could weave around these lasers and sound waves to break my way out, but it's just easier to friend spam the turrets while I effortlessly jump over everything.
Well, hey, far be it from me to tell
True.
people that they shouldn't be annoyed by these
And the
particular
turn off the lights
details,
one.
but
Oof.
I personally never had an issue with them. Plus, this isn't all there is to it. It's the sections in between the main phases that really elevate this fight for me. There's a lights out section where you can use the magnet grab to find her quickly in the group of backup dancers, and this dance off section that
Oh, yeah, I
feels
remember this
straight
one.
out of Space Channel 5. You can compare this to the mechanic that they used later in Roquefort's battle where Corsica helps you out, but I feel like it works better here.
Yeah, I gotta agree there. The dance-off is just a funny moment, and you only do
True.
it once in this fight, which makes it feel special, rather than
It's
the
fun.
bunch of smaller times like with Roquefort.
They even sneak a Simon Says section in there like with the Corsica fight. Corsica wore
True.
it better, but I like reprising it here for the final blow of the fight. To me, it feels like we keep building a bigger arsenal of game mechanics that let the bosses keep getting more complex.
There's complexity, sure, but Mimosa just gives me a headache.
Yeah, I'll grant you that. She is tough, perhaps even frustrating. Some of her moves are particularly egregious, and she's gonna be a wall for many new players. But she's a wall that I enjoy busting down. So much so that I was able to negotiate with Mech and get her at the number 2 spot.
Your channel, your
Your
rules. And I will not be silenced.
I'd call it a compromise, but
Fair.
it really is the only place that we disagreed here. And we both knew that only one character deserved the number 1 spot.
Yeah, we know what this
As for
is going.
Mimosa herself, I still think her performance is worthy of 2nd place. Even if I'd never be caught dead at one of her concerts.
Fair. Out like a firework. And honestly, this was the one that gave me the most trouble since that was the first one I had to restart. I can't remember if it was either just once or twice, because I think I failed the first time, or, I mean, I know I did this fight, but jeez. Sorry, just trying to remember how it went. But, yeah, that one gave me a headache. I think actually I remember, this was 3rd time, so I think it was like, I did the first 2 stages easily, or at least with the trouble. But once I got to the 3rd stage, fell, but was able to get back into it. 3rd phase, by the way. Don't worry, if you lose, you're back to the phase you started, or you last fell on, so you don't have to start over from the beginning, so that's good. So, I think with that out of the way, we all know the number 1, Kale. Which, honestly, considering what we learned about, brainwashing his own mom to take over the company, can't blame him. Sheesh. Anyway. What a vlog. Number 1.
Whew. I love this game, but wow, I do feel like I have a lot of bones to pick with most of the bosses. I might have given the audience the wrong impression.
No worries, dude. You're fine.
Eh.
It's clear we both love this game. We're just very analytical about it. In
Mhm.
fact, that's probably our way of appreciating it.
True.
I know, but it's like, I've played the game for way longer than you have, and I've noticed these things, so I feel like I need to say something.
Go ahead.
I really haven't been that much of a downer the whole video.
Not at all, dude. In
Eh.
fact, why don't you introduce our number 1?
Go ahead.
Yes, sir.
You're the guest.
So, Zanzo notwithstanding, we have the list of 6 bosses here. The first 2 bosses of the game, while good, are also the 2 worst bosses of the game. And it feels great to say that the best boss is the one they saved for last.
Mhm.
Boss of the company, Kale Vandelay.
This guy works so well as the villain of this game. For me at least, he's lovable and hateable at the same time. Sort of a handsome Jack thing going
Pretty
on.
much.
Kale is arrogant, inconsiderate, and kind of pathetic. Like, he's not completely incompetent, he clearly has some technological know-how to run the company, but let's not forget that he inherited his position, and
Well, he
he's gotten by
stole it.
largely through the work of more talented people. He's not the best at anything in his company, while the other department heads are wiser, savvier, stronger, smarter, and more charismatic.
And most importantly, he's lazy. I'd say that's actually his biggest character flaw. He wants everything in the world, but he's too lazy to do anything to get it. He has his directors handle all of his problems until they're eliminated one by one. His entire evil plan to mind control the masses is because he thinks marketing his products is too hard. He'd rather just brain hack the consumers and let an algorithm determine what they buy. Seems familiar.
Hey.
If he can do that, he won't need to worry about making products people actually want. They'll just buy it because they have to. Of course, this ultimately causes him more trouble than if he just, made his products better. But it gets out of hand because all he knows is the path of least resistance. Hell, his last words are,
"This is just too much work."
You can almost think of Kale as a version of Chai that never helped Peppermint or the others.
And yet we can't help but like him, probably because he's so extra. Like, you can tell he's trying so hard to look like everything is under control, and aside from the moments when his facade cracks and he screams at one of his underlings, he actually is cool. Or maybe it's just the voice. Roger Craig Smith is a vocal genius. When Kale gets up during the fight and says,
"Come on, Chai."
that gets me fired up every time. And his Iron Man suit transforms into coattails and a collar.
Are we sure that's a
Who
suit?
the hell
I
does
always
this
thought
guy
that was
think
just
he is?
him just
But enough
taking a
about
new
the
body.
character. Let's talk about this
Project
boss fight.
Anyway.
Well, 3.5 phases, you can say, because first Chai is mind-controlled and 808 becomes a UFC fighter for 30 seconds.
I do kind of wish that there was more to this segment. You kind of just double jump some waves and get a QuickTime event, but it is a fun little moment.
True.
Then, the true battle begins. It's just as hard as Mimosa's battle, but this time for all the right reasons. Putting every skill you have to the test.
Pretty much.
Finding your openings to
Light 'em
attack.
up.
Calling in assists at the right times. Dodging, parrying. You even get some of those Simon Says showdowns. Kale's moves are simple to understand, but difficult to avoid consistently. You'll have to really focus and adapt to learn the patterns.
And more so than any other fight, you
And
need to
I
dodge
actually
with
didn't
the
have to
beat.
restart here.
One thing that I appreciate
Still
about
pretty
Hi-Fi
impressive
Rush is
considering-
that it's willing to help you out for a while if you're not great with rhythm games. Combos and super attacks take specific timing, but basic attacks always delay to be on beat automatically. It's a good way to learn how to fight like a dancer, but by the time you reach the final battle, the game's long since stopped holding your hand. Kind of like Chai, who wants to be a rock star but doesn't actually know how to play the guitar. You might have started this game with little experience in rhythm games, but have slowly improved your skill as you progress through the
Pretty
adventure.
much.
You're riding
I mean,
so high,
I
you might not even
S-ranked
notice
that
the
boss.
training wheels
I
fell
had
off your
trouble
bike
with the
3
bosses.
miles ago. You've come a long way, and now you're ready for the ultimate test. Plus, the evil tower backdrop of this fight is amazing. The soundtrack is pulling out all the stops with the perfect drug by 9 Inch Nails. Everything about this fight is just perfect.
Yeah,
Except.
perfect.
Go ahead, Mech. It's fine.
Good.
Okay, thankfully, this time it's a quick list. 3 things. The first problem is the dreaded Phase 2 curse. Like Roquefort, Rekka, and Mimosa, Kale gets really hard to damage in this middle section, and there's a lot of downtime. He grows these Dr. Octopus arms.
That look awesome.
True.
Yes, they look awesome, but each
You really
one
gotta
has to be
figure out which
countered by
way
a
it's
specific
going,
assist
otherwise,
move before you
well,
can
good
destroy
luck.
them. Until you do that, he's untouchable, and you have to wait for him to do very specific
Yeah.
moves that you can counter. Macaron slams his bludgeons into the ground, Corsica puts out the fire, and Peppermint shatters the solar lens. Eventually, I found myself just standing at mid-range waiting for him to do the right thing.
Yeah, I can understand that. The waiting isn't too appreciated.
The second is that it's also kind of exploitable. A single Grand Slam combo can take out his arms on hard difficulty or lower, and a jam combo takes them out on very hard and Rhythm Master. So either I wait forever or I do the you win combo. Fortunately, both of these
Say
problems
you
are
win
only
combo?
in phase
Cool.
2. The last case is more of a case of wanting more, narratively speaking. I wish the dialogue took cues from the Corsica fight. Maybe they could have interspersed it more between phases. But despite showing up for assists, the other members of Chai's team are trapped behind a laser wall for the whole fight, and they don't really have much to say. Especially Peppermint.
kinda surprising.
I mean, this is her brother we're fighting here.
Yeah, and if you think about it, Macaron and Corsica are both ex-employees of his. Chai's probably the one least personally attached to Kale. So it would have been nice to get bigger moments from the others, but at least we get a little of that with this last set of QuickTime events, stringing together a well-choreographed team wombo combo.
But other than that, it's very well crafted. It's a fitting end to an amazing game, and the only choice for the game's best boss fight.
I'm the Green Scorpion.
And I'm Mechasalt Man.
And if you haven't played Hi-Fi Rush yet, consider
Please
this
do.
our glowing recommendation. And if you have played it, do you agree with our order? Do you disagree? Let us know in the comments.
Fair enough.
And while we're talking about new things, go check out Mechasalt Man on YouTube. Seriously, dude, it was
I'll
great
find
having
some
you
time.
on.
I mean, it was only a top 6.
Top 7,
Seven.
Mech. This was a top 7.
Well, it was great to be here. and I hope it was as fun to watch as it was to write and record. But it couldn't possibly be as fun as taking down the Big Six yourself. Get yourself a copy of Hi-Fi Rush and have yourself a good time.
Rock on, everybody.
Rock out. I have to agree because, well, it did feel like you actually did it, you know? And to each their own, as they say, but I definitely had a fun time. And I was kind of worried about it since, well, you know, had a little rough start, but after that, I was pretty much grooving along to the beat and just wrecking fools. And that Kale fight, that was pretty awesome. And that's actually one of my better boss fights, because other times I was like, "Ah, damn it, no, okay." But that one, I actually S-ranked. Like, that was a rare one, and the fact the final boss was a S-rank for me was pretty incredible. Well, anyway, thanks for watching, guys. Let me know your favorite fight, if you actually played Hi-Fi Rush. But if not, go play it. Let me know which one's your favorite, and adios.